Colorado. We have the recordings turned on just a couple minutes early, just FYI, so our conversation with the learners is part of the recording. Hi, Brian.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
I'm trying to also I'm signed in on my iPad and I'm trying to get onto my computer. So just give me a moment here.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah.
Yes, hi, Lisa. I can hear you. It's Mark.
Mark. Brian, we're all here. Gang's all here. It's
Okay. I'm trying. You're going to probably see me launched in two different places. So
okay.
maybe I'll just give up on that. And it was going through an update, which took hours. All right. I'll just bag that. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so I can't hear you right now.
How about now?
Okay, now I can, yes.
Okay, great. Looks like you're in twice for whatever reason, but if that's working.
Sorry about that. It's just just in time delivery didn't work. Okay, so are we ready to go?
I think that we are.
All right, before we get recording, I just wanted to bring to note under the
Brian,
yes.
before you say what you're going to say, we are already recording. The recording started a couple minutes early by accident.
Okay, be that way. All right, so I'll save it for later. Okay, this is the Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors meeting of October 28th, 2024. This meeting is being recorded early. And going to have a roll call of the Board of Directors to make sure we have a quorum.
Absolutely. Roll call of the board. Ryan Noggle.
Here.
Amir Famili.
Here.
Ted Lyons.
Here.
Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Norma Cusick.
Here.
Kevin Baker. Linda Rosenfeld. Here. Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Gramis.
Here.
All right, we have 8 board members present, so we do have a quorum.
All right, great. All right, the meeting information was distributed to the Board of Directors in advance of this meeting electronically as well as hard copy. We'll begin with a review of the agenda and any need for executive sessions. Are there any changes, additions, or corrections?
I'm pleased to report there are no changes, additions, or corrections to the agenda. However, we do have an executive session closed this meeting to discuss a personnel matter.
All right, so noted. All right. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2024 board meeting.
Okay, Brian, I have one question actually on the minutes. On the middle to bottom of page 5, talks about the approval of the primary slip system upgrade projects. Says construction phase amount 4,439,355. And then it talks about the approvals of the contract and construction supporting engineer. Just want to make sure the numbers are right, and if they are, maybe we should have a short note about the other $2 million. Know why there's a difference between. So, just some in case some person would read that and be
See what
like,
you're saying.
see. I don't know.
Amy, do you happen to know
I
that?
don't have the number.
Oh,
off the
let me
top of
pull
my
up,
head.
I'm gonna pull up the packet from the last meeting. We can get that real quick.
Yeah, that 4 million seems high.
Okay.
I have one other question. On page 3, under Western Lehigh Interceptor user charge report, at the last sentence, it mentioned that Sean had abstained. I do remember him abstaining. But was it in regard to his not attending the entire meeting, or was it because of some conflict potential?
Sean, can you respond to that?
Yes, I believe it was I believe it was the former.
Okay, because you had not been there for the full meeting or the full discussion.
Correct.
Okay, all right, good. Then the notes are correct. Thank you. Are we waiting for Amy to check on those numbers?
I'm pulling up the packet from the last meeting, which I'll just put on the screen real quick.
Should be
Yeah,
two.
yep. I had put that on the screen. So this is the memo and the actions that the board took at the last meeting. So the total number should be 2,439,300.
That's Jeff.
So to make that change, I make a motion that we approve the minutes. Sorry.
Okay, a motion was made by Jeff to approve the meetings with that change, and I did not hear who did the second.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Ted. All right, any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Jeff, and staff, sorry. Okay, at this point in time, we open up the meeting for any public comments on items that are not on the agenda. Are there any comments?
No, thanks, Brian.
Yep, no thanks.
All right, thank you for being here. Moving on then to action and discussion items, we have 4 items under finance and administration. The first one being the 2025 budget seeking approval. It is the yellow documents within the board package and digital board packet pages 9 to 13.
Thank you, Brian. So the yellow pages that are included in the packet are include the executive summary of the budget. And that basically indicates that nothing else has changed since our last presentation. Is that right, Ed?
That is 100% correct.
So the executive summary provides kind of an overview of the budget and the key initiatives that are included, as well as some of the performance metrics. I do have a brief presentation to give a high-level summary of the budget. And members of the public or board who like that kind of review, go ahead and get that up straight. So it is October 28th, and that is just 4 days shy of the required approval date for a budget. So I think we're close and can receive support for this year's budget. Just a reminder of all that we've been through together over the last couple of months. Certainly the staff worked very hard on putting the budget assumptions and the numbers together in the summer. We began in September reviewing major assumptions, reviewing preliminary budget figures. At the last minute, or at the last meeting, we reviewed the budget in some detail along with rate impacts. So I have a complete picture of the budget and its impact to our customers. Today, we're seeking approval of the budget, and at the next meeting in November, we would ask for approval of the rates. That will give us enough time to do the information required before the effective date of January 1. So the highlights, this is similar to or the same as what you've seen before. Just want to make sure we're on the same page about what's included in the budget. First of all, as it relates to our strategic initiatives, there are a number of projects, new programs that are required and are requiring staff support in 2025. Those include our regional sewer program and the requirements DEP has set for us on removing inflow and infiltration from the system. Our lead program is another new requirement, new regulatory requirement, and the need for additional support for that program is really critical. Our asset management program is one of those strategies that we've been working on for a number of years and really getting into the meat of it now, trying to develop asset management plans for all of our systems, and that requires additional support. And then there's a couple of other things that I'll mention in a little bit that require support. There are other strategies that require non-staff support, and those are included in the budget related to our implementation of the Tyler EERP, or Munis that we call it. That project is going to continue into 2025. We have a number of safety initiatives and employee engagement initiatives that will require support as well. And then lastly, a plan for our future staffing workforce needs and our building optimization, which I believe we've been talking about for the last several meetings, that some resources are required next year to see those through. So the summary on the screen now just shows the positions that we've talked about, including in the budget. Some of them say 0 because I just wanted to make it clear that we've removed those from the budget. But essentially, we're asking for 6.5 additional people or positions to be added to our budget, to our head count, and those focus in the areas that I just mentioned. So our regional I&I program requires some support for actually managing and developing that program. It's a brand new program for us. We have opted to remove the positions related to the high strength surcharge program. That is something that the municipalities, Allentown, and the 14 other municipalities in the Kleins Island are still working through and thinking about. If we do determine that program needs to happen, then we'll come back and we'll present that to the board at that time. We have a few positions related to the lead program and how we identify where the lead service lines are that we are required to then replace, and having really good results using internal staff and managing it internally. So we'd like to continue that and expand that so that we can better scope those projects. And I have to say, for those positions in particular, the future efficiency and effectiveness of the lead service line replacement programs relies on us knowing where the lead service lines are. And the only way for us to do that is to get in every home where it's an unknown for the most part. So this is really preemptive work to make sure that the rest of the program can be as effective as possible. Mentioned the asset management technical position would be more of a hands-on role to help us develop the asset management plans for all of our systems and assets. And then we have 2 positions that we've kept in the budget, but you see they're listed as to be determined. That's what TBD stands for. First one relates to an opportunity that we have with our municipal customers looking for support on operation of their sewer systems. And we're exploring those conversations or exploring those potential service contracts now. If they are going to be finalized, then we will need some additional support that will be fully funded by those service contracts. And then finally, on the PA1 call, there's been some movement on new legislation and new requirements for marking not only the lines in street, but also the service lines going into the home. And as our programs expand, the I&I program, the loan program, our market requirements will also expand. So we're trying to figure out exactly what those changes in the legislation will require and what our programs will require before we would fill that position.
This is just a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
The I&I program manager is part of the organization,
Is part of, I'm sorry.
part of the AGES organization.
Yeah.
So if you look at the chart that we approved a couple months ago,
Mhm.
so we have a program manager, KISS Act 537, which we have not hired yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
So is that part of that org chart?
The
Yeah.
I&I program manager would work under the regional, KISS Act 537 program manager. That's what we've envisioned. So the I&I piece of it is just such a big component, kind of a separate animal from all the other projects that need to happen under the KISS Act 537.
So we needed a project capital program manager and inspectors for project capitals and I&I program manager. So for that group, we have to hire a program manager for KISS Act 537. And that I&I manager is going to be reporting to that individual. Is that the correct assumption? And still, are we talking about hiring that KISS Act 537 as an internal move, or are we talking about external hire?
It's potentially an internal move and,
Okay.
that's,
And the other question was, on your last presentation for the community canvases, you had grant money supporting that. And I think the term of grant has been removed from here. Is that correct? Or I'm mistaken?
yeah, I changed this chart to focus more on like the decision-making process that we're going through for each position and the things that we need to consider. I took off the funding sources for the positions, but those positions, if we have grant support for our projects, that work would fall in under the grant money that we would receive.
And how long do we anticipate this canvassing program would go? Is that a 5 years, 30 years window?
Most likely, it's roughly a 5-year canvassing effort. The whole replacement program is roughly 10 years. We have a couple years of startup and then a 10-year window where we're required to remove all the lead service lines. Really depends on how effective we can be in getting to all the homes. We have just finalized our inventory and have close to 20,000 unknown service lines. So 2 people getting to 20,000 homes, that feels like a 5-year project.
So if this program is for 5 years, can we take a different approach rather than bringing 2 full-time employees here? That after 5 years, maybe the skill that they have is not transferable to a different role. Can we take a different approach that the burden of this after 5 years will not fall again on the shoulder of our LCA? So I'm just trying to figure out, I'm always thinking about what is a different approach we can take. Some of them, you have the I&I manager. You're going to have the issue I&I, after us, right? So those are, having a director of planning or the asset management, those are lifetime. But this one is just a 5 years window.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%, Amir, and I think that's why we say the full scope is to be determined. We want to have the funding available in the budget to do it, but I think there's a couple different ways to skin the cat, so to speak. We have been having some conversations with community organizations that we might be able to partner with and do the door-to-door canvassing a different way, potentially, but those conversations are in their infancy. The other thing that we are thinking is that the community canvassers, the skill set will be transferable. These are positions that will be very customer facing. So those skills in and of themselves are transferable to other positions, but also the plumbing evaluations, the meter evaluations. This is work that's very much related to work we already do. So if we were to hire inside, we believe they would be trained and very easily able to fill into other positions if they're, if the program is completed at that point. But I agree with you. We need to think carefully about the structure of this program before we would actually advertise and hire for those positions.
So when do we plan to start our pilot program?
So we did our pilot canvassing this year already. Chris is unfortunately, he's not here to talk about it, but our pilot canvassing was done in-house on a small scale and very successful. A small team of two of our field service department employees going door to door to about 500 homes, I believe it was. Does that sound right, Andrew? Yeah. And they got roughly 30% success in getting in the homes and doing the inspections, which from what we hear is an excellent result compared to other methods. So we think that by managing it internally, we'll continue to have good results. That's why there's a bias toward trying to manage it internally at this point.
I mean, I'm 100% with you bring it inside. My only caution is, it's a 5 years program, and 5 years from now, the pool of employees which is available outside with different skill set might be prefer over those two people that we have internally, right? So, from my experience, rather than doing consultant, there are a lot of temporary agency. You can bring somebody for temporary for 5 years. And if those people end up to be a good employer, you can roll them into their full-time employee. Again, I'm sorry, I don't plan to dictate what to do or not to do. I'm just talking about my experience, and when you have budget crunch, what are the alternative approach you can take to achieve your goal, at the same time, cautious of
Yeah.
So
Amir, if I could just also explain our budgeting process where we're saying headcount change. We also include temporary staff in that. So the 0.5 for the call center support, we expect to fill that through a temp agency. So we could take the same approach for the canvassers and do it more as a temporary assignment that could become full-time as things evolve. I think that's absolutely on the table and wouldn't really affect how we budget necessarily, just how we fill it.
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the summary of the staffing, again, this is what you've seen previously. We have our current 170.5 employees, and this actually needs to be updated because we've recently filled a few positions. So the 14 is now closer to 10. So we've had some good news there. We're eliminating the solicitor position, so that we get a reduction there. 6.5 additions brings us up to 190. And again, just as we just discussed, there could be a mix of some temp component to the 190, depending on how we fill those positions. The other strategic initiatives are listed here with some of the consultant support that we think is required to continue or start various strategic initiatives related to the regional sewer program, We have some continued financial modeling that will finish up in 2025. The Munis project, Tyler ERP, we plan to finish that in 2025. The lead program, we have some equipment that's required for our in-house use to replace lead service lines that occur on an emergency basis, as well as various compliance equipment requirements for compliance. Employee engagement, safety program enhancements for equipment and training. Identify some needs there. So it comes to rate affordability. We've talked quite a bit about rates in this budget cycle, and we think there's some room to work on rate affordability. Rate design will need some help to do that. So budgeting for that. The building optimization study we have talked about previously, and that work just recently got underway. And then a number of other smaller initiatives related to our emergency response plan and other studies. So those are all incorporated into the budget proposal. Our normal assumptions are here. Our inflation is included in how we project expenses. We have rates by agreement with the city, rates by agreement with suburban wastewater signatories. And that should be updated. The suburban water system revenue growth is actually 7.5. So I apologize for that error. 7.5, right, Ed?
Mhm.
Thanks. So, Ed, do you want to talk about some numbers?
Dan? So if you take a look at the key metrics for us are right up at the top of the scale there, debt service coverage ratio at 2.26 for water, 2.43 for wastewater, 2.03 for the city. So that's a pretty good deal, being above 1.20. You can see the net revenues available for debt service and water, almost $8 million, $5 in wastewater, and a big amount in the city division. Going down to the middle of it all, we haven't changed any of these numbers, but you're still going to spend almost $4.8 million in capital in suburban water. You're up to $13.7 million in wastewater, and almost $51 million in the city division. So a total of $69 million, and heading down to the bottom, once you get down there, we are actually using up some reserves in suburban water, I believe in the nature of $400,000. And even with using some reserves, we will still have 331 days of operating cash on hand. That's good. We try to be at 180. Wastewater, we're close, 330. And the city will be at 539, and in total 429. And keep in mind the 539, there will be some borrowed funds still remaining as we borrowed for 3 years.
Even, do you want to go back?
Yeah,
Your
just
question?
please.
Mhm.
To educate me, so if you look at your net revenue is about $65 million, is that correct?
That's correct.
$23 million goes for your debt services.
That's correct.
Okay, so you got about 40-some million dollars left, is that correct?
Yes, you'll have $40 million left, 42 million.
So for capital expenditure that you have is 69. So you said you're taking $29 million from that 42, is that correct?
You're taking, $29 million out of the operating side is gonna go to fund capital. That's
Okay,
correct.
so from 42, you're taking 29 for your capital.
That's correct.
And the remaining of money goes to,
You're gonna have to borrow to cover. You're gonna have to borrow to cover.
okay.
Yeah, you're gonna have a gap, negative gap, so you're gonna need to borrow to cover.
No, my question was from 42 that you have left,
Mhm.
you only have 29 here.
Correct.
So from 42, so you have $65 million your operating income.
Mhm.
23 goes to debt services, you got $42 million left. Of that 42, you're using 29 for funding the capital. So 42 minus 19, you got about 12, $13 million left. Where does that end up at your budget?
That ends up funding capital on a roll forward basis from the city,
Future capital.
future capital.
But it's not part of your budget.
No. You're building up you're maintaining a cash reserve. I know where you're going. Cash reserve to meet the day's cash on hand. So let's go back up top. 65 million minus 23 is $42 million of money left.
Yes.
You're gonna take out $69 million of capital.
Sure.
Okay, so you're already negative, and we're gonna need to borrow to cover it. Out of some of that borrowing, you're going to spend most of that in suburban wastewater. So what you borrow, you're gonna use for capital and wastewater, but you're still gonna have carryover from what you already borrowed in the city, which will roll into another year.
I think maybe looking at it a different way is, we look at the total and it appears there's the 42-ish million dollars that's left. But if we look at it column by column, that $42 million isn't available for all of the capital in each of the other categories. So it's really only available in the city.
In the city,
Yeah.
yes, that's what,
Okay.
you're getting it carried forward in the city.
Okay, thank you.
She said it better than I did.
Good questions. So this is really just a summary, even more of a summary than the summary for, some of our public website and fact sheets to just give a really good snapshot of our finances. $121 million in revenue, minus 56 in operating expenses, minus 69 in capital improvements, minus 23 in debt service. We're going to add in about $40 million in new or previous borrowing to cover the difference. We have average annual water bill for suburban and Allentown shown there, and annual sewer bill for suburban and Allentown. You can see there's some differences there, primarily on the water side. In Allentown, the rates are a bit higher. And we just have to remember what that covers, which is the debt service related to the lease. So there is a significant requirement there to keep those rates where they are.
Question.
Yes, sir.
And could you go back to the ratios of debt coverage and cash on hand, days cash on hand? We back it up.
Sure.
Looking at the numbers at the bottom, you commented that 180 is typically the industry standard.
Mhm.
And we're looking at 330, 330, and 539.
Yes.
Is it possible to have too much cash on hand? Would that indicate an inefficient use of cash?
So I could answer that by saying, if I was sitting in a world, and we were sitting in a world where we're looking at steady capital expenditures over a period of time, not looking at what we have to do with 537 plan, I would say you might say that you could have a little bit too much money. For me, there's enough unknown, especially with 537 plan, to say the more that I can build up without penalizing anyone to maintain that ratio, the better off we are, because I just think there's too many unknowns in the 537 plan. And that plays a role.
I guess, again, this is not a private business, but I guess if you were a private business, you'd start paying dividends, and if you're sitting on a pile of cash, or
Yeah.
unless you're sort of saving it for a rainy day.
Or you're saving it for,
Yeah.
because you got your plan.
Warren Buffett, yeah. So I just mentioned that we can't be making too much money and we're a public service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A valid point, and that's why when we looked at suburban water, we tried to go cash neutral And we ended up taking up some reserves, or that 331 would have been a little bit higher. Just get a little bit concerned once we migrate over to the suburban wastewater and the city division with 537 plans. There's, in my estimation, too many unknowns. And I would hate to reduce reserves now and then say, oh my gosh, now look what we have to do. Now we have to go back up.
Thank you.
So I'll give a summary of the rate impact and the changes that are coming along with the budget. This is just a reminder that we have all this information on our website for public viewing. We're accepting public comments. We normally don't receive a lot, but if we do receive any, we'll make sure that the board receives those as well. Our city division rates on average will be increasing 5.5%. In our suburban water division, there's a range of 6 to 7.5%, and that range is basically reflecting the rate structure and customers who use different volumes of water will see a slightly different rate impact. There's no change in our suburban wastewater rates for the retail side for the direct customers. But our wastewater signatory rates and Boston Beer rates will change based on formulas and the user charge report you saw in the last meeting. So just a quick snapshot of what that means for an average customer in Allentown. Residential bill for 15,000 gallons per quarter is shown here for 2024 versus 2025 under the proposed new rates, and you can see the bottom line. This is for water and sewer combined, $247 today, and next year that would increase by $13.50 to $260. For suburban water, these numbers are a bit lower than the prior slide, but remember this is only for water. The wastewater is billed by the townships in our suburban division primarily. So in 2024, the same average customer usage of 15,000 gallons bill would be going from about $88 to about $95. And that would vary depending on the water usage. This is the same graph that I shared with you at the last meeting showing communities across the Lehigh Valley and how LCA water and sewer rates stack up. In the blue bars are LCA water and sewer annual rates for that average customer. I also added this year to the chart some other communities in Pennsylvania because I think it's important for us to think about not just the Lehigh Valley, but other communities that are maybe more similar to us, like the city of Harrisburg or city of Pittsburgh, and those are included now. And you can see there are some of those communities paying significantly more for water and sewer. Some of those differences are actually a result of where they are on the continuum of capital spending. So for example, city of Pittsburgh has gotten way ahead of their lead service line replacement program. They have spent a lot of money on replacing lead service lines. So their rates have increased dramatically as a result of that and all the other capital improvements that are required. So it would be reasonable for us to expect some similar trends for us. We do take it seriously, the support that we need to provide to customers. We understand that these rates are not affordable for all customers, so we try to share information about assistance programs that are available either through the state fund or through our own hardship program that we have. We offer payment plans. We hope that our customer service, customer education efforts are also helpful in helping customers manage their bills and their usage. And you can learn more about our customer support programs on our website here. So where we are today is seeking approval on our 2025 budget. It is required by November 1st, so if we have any final adjustments we need to make, we need to make them quickly. And then we'll look for rate adoption at the next meeting with rate effective date of January 1st. Entire presentation. Happy to entertain questions or discussion.
Do any board members have questions? Does anybody have questions?
No, thank you.
Brian, I move the budget be approved.
All right, motion made by Linda for the 2025 budget to be approved.
I'll second that. This is
Seconded-
Norma.
Seconded by Norma. Are there any questions? All right, let's have a voice vote on the motion, please.
All right, voice vote on for approval of the 2025 budget. Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Amir Famili,
Yes.
Ted Lyons,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Yes.
Norma Cusick,
Yes.
Linda Rosenfeld,
Yes.
Sean Ziller,
Yes.
Mark Gramis.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And thanks for the presentation and the months of working on this. Moving on then to the next item, it's now we deal with a 5-year budget. 2025 to 2029 capital plan is the capital plan. Seeking approval, it's the white documents within the board package, and it's digital board packet pages 14 to 40.
Thank you, Brian. I have a brief presentation that sort of follows along the materials that are in the packet. So I'll go ahead and get that up on the screen, and I'll ask Chuck and Ed to jump in as needed throughout. So 2025 to 2029 capital plan is been in the works for quite some time. Similar to the budget, we have a multi-month process. And this is, again, just a reminder, we share this with every meeting. The 5-year plan is a plan, it's conceptual, it is not approval of these dollars. The dollars get incorporated into the annual budget, which you just approved, thank you. They also come to you in the form of project approvals, where we get to talk in more detail about justification for each project. And then finally, we're doing any project-specific financing, the board also includes those. So there's a lot of different ways that the board gets to approve and weigh in on projects. And just reading Sean's message that he has to drop off, so at 12:41. So we have that for the minutes. The development of the capital plan, while this schedule looks quite similar to our budget process. So we started this summer with the staff work to build the projects and build a structure for the capital plan. We presented in August, we presented the Allentown division, the administration projects, and then the suburban division projects to the board in August, and then released the plan to the public for review. And along the way with our budget process, we did have some revisions to some of the capital plans. So that's really what's reflected on the sheets and in the packet that you all have. So just a couple of changes I wanted to highlight that are different from the last set of plans that you received. First of all, the pre-treatment plant upgrade and replacement. We call that our 2.0 project. So we're going to upgrade and potentially replace major portions of the pre-treatment plant. We had previously put $5 million into the 2025 budget within the capital plan. We've reduced that to $1 million for 2025. That's what's in the budget, and that is now reflected in the capital plan. And essentially that change is to basically reflect that we have near-term critical upgrades that we're doing that will give us more time and flexibility to make decisions about the future of this facility. There's also quite a bit of work we need to do with the industries that are impacted to make sure we know how we're going to pay for future upgrades there. So just extending that project timeline a bit seemed to make sense.
Listen, we just approved $4 million for pre-treatment plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that 5 million originally it was above that 4 million, or since we spent the 4 million in approve it already, so there's 1 million left, the 2025 become 1 million.
Yeah, so that's a different project. So we approved $4 million for critical near-term upgrades to facilities within that pretreatment plant that need to be replaced now for it to function properly. This project, the upgrade and replacement, is the long-term view, the long-term replacement of that facility. So we're doing the $4 million of near-term upgrades so that the plant can function and meet its discharge requirements during a period of time while we're also then doing this replacement project.
Do you think it makes sense that first we know what we're going to do with pre-treatment plant? Because if we're going to keep it for 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, our approach is going to be very different, right? So should we start thinking about first about what is the strategy for pre-treatment plant? I do recognize some of the critical needs that you have, right? Even for 1 or 2 years.
Right.
But I think that should be, in my opinion, that should come first. Then your strategy dictate what are the things that you have to work on to retain if the goal is 2 years or 5 years or 10 years.
I think that's part of the reason that we took the $5 million down to the 1 million for design and planning work for the future of the facility. We're doing those critical near-term things so that we know the plant will be able to function and meet the discharge requirements. But then we still need to plan and begin that process for the next phase of the program. We need to have some funding available for that. So we dropped the design work, which was really fast-tracked in 2025. We dropped that from the 5 million down to the 1 million to reflect that. That makes sense?
What you're saying makes sense. I think maybe I'm saying something different. I'm looking at first at the board level, we have to see a plan. What is our strategy for pre-treatment plant? Is that 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And then depending upon that, then we have to start working on what are the items that if it's 2 years, 5 years, we have to do. Since we haven't seen a decision on pre-treatment plan, then where we plan to go with that. Anything we try to do, my mind said, if you don't know your strategy, then you should stop spending till you know what your strategy is going to be regarding the pre-treatment plant.
I think we're doing that. I think
We haven't seen that at the board level.
We put the pressure on getting the critical near-term upgrades done so that we have the time to do what you're talking about. So we have the time to really work through what the longer-term strategy is. The $1 million is not authorized money. It's just in the 2025 budget.
Plug.
It's a plug so that now between now and whenever we authorize future design work, we're really spending that time working with the industries and understanding what those future relationships will look like, what the future financial structure will look like. But we need the design dollars in the budget so that when we're ready, we can start. The park pump station upgrade phase 2, this is that generator project that we've had some shifting timelines because of slow delivery of equipment. So the $500,000 kind of shifted into 2025 and we'll make that change in the budget and the capital plan. And then the last one on the screen is the I&I source reduction program. We had previously planned a rather large rehab project in 2025 of $8 million. We have since sort of rethought how we're doing the I&I program and want to focus in 2025 on sanitary sewer studies to better pinpoint where the INI is coming from and have better designed projects that will be effective in removing the inflow and infiltration. So we've reduced the dollars in 2025 to reflect that scope change. And then we have a whole series of projects that have been removed from the capital plan. These are $67 million worth of projects removed in these 4 categories. These are projects that were originally planned within the Act 537 plan to begin construction and design and construction in this current 5-year period. However, late in the summer, we received more feedback from DEP about the timing and sequence of projects, and have understood now that these projects really should move to the second 5-year time period within the 537 plan. So that's good news for now. Anyway, we moved those projects from the plan. So you can see just a summary of the 5-year plan and the various categories of projects all together, $356 million, which is almost $100 million more than our last 5-year plan. And every year we are seeing this pretty significant increase as new requirements and new programs are added. I wanted to touch on briefly, I promise, 2 major programs that we've been talking about. First one being the lead program. And just to make sure that the board is aware, we're talking about a 10-year estimate of almost $200 million to remove lead service lines. And we mentioned in the prior discussion about all of the unknowns, roughly 19,000 unknown service lines, and then the 4,800 known lead service lines, 6,000 galvanized that must be removed. Significant amount of work and expense to address this program. We do have an updated website that I wanted to direct you to, which is lehighcountyauthority.org/leadfree, and a lot of really good information about the responsibilities on the customer side and the authority side, as well as how we're moving forward with these projects. One of the key things that we had to do last week, 2 weeks ago, as part of the compliance with the new rule, is to publish a inventory and an interactive map. This is now available on our website. You can look up your own address in the search bar and find out what items say in terms of the service line material. And just to put a point on it, I know I'm kind of hammering this point, but all of these gray diamonds throughout are the unknowns. So they're everywhere. And this is where we need to get in and find out what the material is. The other major program is the Kleins Island sewer system. We're doing these presentations through these open house events that started a couple weeks ago. Our last one is on tomorrow night. The Kleins Island sewer system, as you know, is a large regional system, and we are attempting to address the age of the system and the impacts of the aging system. The many components of the plant were built in the 1920s through the 1980s. So 50 to 100-year-old system obviously is going to require reinvestment in those systems.
Question.
Yes.
How's the turnout been for these meetings?
The turnout has been light, very light. We had some good attendance at some of the weekday ones, but the Saturdays, not so great. Our last one is tomorrow night at Lower Macungie Township. I actually have a little bit of a feeling we might get a better turnout there because the local EAC is active and the Little Lehigh Watershed Coalition is active in that area. But the interest has been pretty light. So the overall plan over a 10-year period, $300 million roughly speaking, and that's before we add in some of these other programs like the pretreatment plant. These projects are focused on the sewer rehab program, and then some projects actually that we just removed from the capital plan, but cover kind of in the last 10 or the last 5 years of the period. So we're doing public input now and looking at the approval process next year, and hoping to really get a lot of great projects done in the next 10 years. Mentioned the open house event that is tomorrow night. So I went through them very quickly because you're very familiar with them, but those programs really fall into this category, these bottom 3 categories of projects, which are adding significantly to our overall capital. And do you want to speak to the sources of funding for
356 million?
Yeah.
So actually, most of it will be coming from the operating revenues, current cash flows of 164 million. That's actually 46% of the total funding. The borrowing, we are going to need to borrow to do this, and that's worth 147 million plus. And I expect to get $45.2 million worth of grants to assist us as well. So there's going to be some borrowing.
Where do these grants come from?
Most of them are coming from, I mean, who's handling them? Penvest.
Where's the money coming from?
It's coming from the federal government. It's
from us. Or it's coming from us.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, I hated to answer it that way, but yes.
All starts with us and ends with that. Thank you.
There's certain categories of projects that are currently grant eligible, the lead program, also PFAS treatment in Allentown, and some other things. So we're trying to actively pursue them. If we don't get the $45 million in grants, that will end up in new borrowing as well.
Yeah, this is, yes, more than likely that would change that to 190 something, yes.
So the public comment period occurred, and we sent the plan out to municipalities and planning commissions and other stakeholders. I did share it with the county commissioners, did not receive any questions from them, but they do have it posted on our website as well. And Chuck, do you want to talk about the comments we got from the city as well as the planning commission? You attended the planning commission meeting.
Yeah, the city had a bunch of comments and we addressed those comments, I believe, to their satisfaction. They were concerned with some of the projects that we have since deleted from the plan, the solids process improvements. They had a question about the timing of the projects and their comments combined with the DEP comments. We dropped those projects from the plan. They had some comments with plastic trickling filter tower rehab. There's 4 plastic media trickling filters at Klein's Island. We're going to rehab one of them and then see what the condition is on the inside of the tank before rehabbing all of them. And their question was about the timing, and I explained that we're going to remove all the media from one tank, inspect it, and put media back, and that will help us scope out if we have to rehab all 4 tanks. So that they seem to be okay with that. They had a comment about the timing of the Little Lehigh intake, the rehab of that intake. We've the intake has a mechanical screen. We upgraded it a few years ago and bought ourselves some time. So we're pushing that one out a few years in the capital plan. It's not in this year's capital plan, but it will appear on a future capital plan. Along with that, the primary digester feed line project, which we approved a meeting or 2 ago, they just had a question about the timing with the solids process projects, which have since been dropped from the plan. Mostly. We're doing a chemically enhanced pretreatment demonstration down there, and that will follow the replacement of those sludge lines. They had a comment about the timing of that effort, and it would be wise to replace those lines with the glass line pipe and then do the solids process demonstration. So that's what their comment involved, and that's what we are doing.
Question, why don't you consult with Allentown before you put these things together as opposed to requesting comments after it's done?
Well, I mean, when we do the substantially complete design and the basis, actually, when we do the preliminary designs, they have to, for the major capital projects, they have to review and approve of the preliminary designs. For a lot of these comments, they already approved of the preliminary design. They're just commenting now on the budget for the construction. But that's not always the case. We don't always confer with them. Sometimes, projects appear on the plan and they're a few years out. We don't ask, what do you think of this project? And when we acknowledge their comments, we don't always change the capital plan because we come to you for approval and we go to them for approval of the basis of design. So that's when they can approve or disapprove of the projects. But for now, they're just on a plan. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess I just was curious how the process worked.
Yeah.
Something that we had for a comment, they come back and maybe clarification. If you had them at the get-go, maybe you could, I'm not telling you how to do it, you know what you're doing. But I just curious.
Yeah, we're not required to do that per the lease.
I will say that we have a lot of constant interaction
That's
with
what I
the
thought.
city.
Yeah.
And we're focused on the things that are sort of right in front of us, working through all of these projects and getting the 537 done, et cetera. So they're very aware of the need for these projects. Just the first time they see it kind of all together and what it looks like. And their comments are helpful at that stage too.
Right, and some of these comments are in the master plan that they look at. The last time the master plan was done was in 2019, and there's a new one in draft form right now. So some of those projects already appeared in the master plan, and they provide input and they're provided the master plan.
Planning Commission?
And the planning commission, their comments just basically revolved around new projects. They're fine. They already blessed the old projects, the ongoing projects, but their comments were concentrated on the solids process improvements. And they weren't really critical of those projects. They acknowledged that they're being done for the economic well-being of the Lehigh Valley. So that there were no negative comments. They were all supportive.
So the packet that you have in front of you is the cover memo that goes through the things we just presented, copies of the public comments that we received from the Planning Commission and the city in our response letter, and then the updated large summary sheets that show the updated numbers with the changes that we just reviewed. That's all we have for presentation. Happy to answer any questions or discussion.
All right, any board comments, questions? Since we have two representatives here from the Allentown, Jenny and Brian, do you have any comments with regard to the discussion?
Hi, Brian. I think the answers were very well done, and I'm so happy that it was mentioned that we have the overall master planning process every 5 years. There is a lot of interaction, but I did want to say that to Mr. Lyons that even if we were asked prior, that doesn't mean we still wouldn't have comments. So if it was meant to stifle us in some way, that probably wouldn't happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? All right, then we have before us a Capital Plan 2025 to 2029, seeking approval.
Brian, I'll make that motion to approve.
Sound like Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second it.
And
Brian,
Nor-
this is Norma.
all right. Motion made by Mark and seconded by Norma to approve the 2025-2029 capital plan as presented. Are there any questions? All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The plan is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, then, we have the next item on our agenda is resolution number 10, 2024-1, suburban wastewater borrowing. Blue documents in our board package and digital board packet pages 41 to 47.
And for this one, I'm going to turn over to Ed.
So yes, I'm gonna ask you for some more money. So back in 2024, when we did the budget back in last October, on the suburban wastewater side, we had projected that we were going and budgeted almost $11.2 million worth of capital expense. To handle that, we had basically set out that we were gonna need to borrow $7.2 million to do it. We were still in the neighborhood of almost $11 million of capital based on the latest forecast that we had. And we had not borrowed yet. And I'm seeing a little bit of a crunch on cash flow. So I'm looking to see, and looking to get approval to go ahead and do the borrowing that we thought we were gonna do to start with and that we budgeted, but not for the same amount. I'm gonna be a little bit less in terms of suburban wastewater of $5 million. In addition to that, because we are embarking on the critical path upgrades to ETP plant that exists today, and I believe that overall over a 2-year period, that's $7.5 million worth of expenditure. I'm looking to get another 6 built into this borrowing so that we can go ahead and start on the critical upgrades and not run the risk of having that plant just not work for us and be stuck with dealing with that. So I have Chris Gibbons, who you probably remember from Concord Public Finance, assisting me with all of the analysis and numbers on this. So we're gonna do a presentation that basically says we're gonna borrow $11 million, and we can lay out some of the conditions that exist, if you don't mind. Right, next one. So again, we're looking to get $11 million. They'll cover projects in Western Lehigh that we had set out and budgeted for this year a while ago anyway. We are looking to refinance an existing bond for some debt service savings that we can muster up, and also reduced administrative activity with respect to liens. We're looking to get some flexibility to finance future larger projects, capital projects, which will be coming down the way. And as part of this, we're also trying to get some financial parity issues taken care of with the existing PennBest debt. So we're looking for $5 million related to WLI, $6 million related to PTP critical upgrades. We do have a loan in mind that is at 4.29% with a variable cap of 6%. This would be over a 20-year term. We can draw down on that loan, reducing some of the interest costs by only taking money in chunks instead of taking it all at once. It's prepayable at any time. So if at some point in time in the future, we have more knowns with respect to 537 and interest rates change because the economic conditions change, we could deal with that. We're also refinancing the 2011 Series A in detail. That's about $1 million outstanding at a cap rate of 5.5%. So we're gonna get some net cash flow savings with an interest rate that's lower than 5.5, and post-term will match the 7-year term that still exists. Bank loan, we're looking to obtain the bank loan with flexible terms and prepayment, which is helpful again, as we look down the road. And draw down, which is gonna give us additional borrowing capability if necessary. The PEMVest approval will eliminate some of the, call it the parity, lien parity position interest that exists. Did I get that right?
Yes. So that after we're finished, the only people who have any kind of claim to the suburban wastewater debt is PEMVest and the bank on this proposed phase.
The question, and I was out of the room at the beginning, so forgive me. These deals that like a 7-year fixed rate at 4.29% variable thereafter, 6%, 4.29 rate, 5. Where did these deals come from? How do you go to market to get?
We solicited 36 banks. 7 of those 36 banks gave us 20 proposals, both 20 and 30-year terms. We tried to then use the goals that we put on that screen of how do we winnow down who the winner is. We're all about flexibility and ability to carry out your mission going forward. So the S&T Bank financing proposal that Ed has outlined up on the screen is the one. That's how we refined to that number. Or that.
Do you negotiate these deals? Do you shop them at all?
We shop them, yes. We essentially put together a term sheet saying, here, this is what we need. This is when we're proposing to repay it. We would like to have it prepayable at any time. And here's the security under which we would borrow the money.
So you actively negotiate with these people?
Yes, we do.
And going back to the question that you asked previously with respect to days cash on hand, debt service. So all of these things come into play now because, for lack of a better word, that we were the prettiest girl at the dance.
Yes, yeah. Show them a little bit of leg.
It's definitely true. I mean, we haven't gotten 7 different banks proposing for other financing projects for a while.
Yeah.
And it clearly was because of the name. So.
Thank you. And just, I think this complexity of pre-treatment plant is just getting to me. We're spending $4 million this year. $1 million, let's talk about the capital budget for 2025. And now 6 million is going to be for 2026.
So the $6 million is going to be for 2025, 2026. It has nothing to do with the new system. We basically take the existing PTP that is got issues and keep it running.
So that money shouldn't come from the user? I mean, my understanding was that PTP, we have a firewall for the money spent versus the other, correct? And those monies, we have to look at this guy and say $6 million we have to spend, and we got to get the rate to go up to cover that.
So in answer to your question, we do not have an agreement with some of the businesses yet because we still don't have a firm decision on how we're going to move forward with a new PTP. However, there is still players in the system now that need to fess up and be part of a solution for paying back the $6 million to keep the plant running. Yes.
If they don't fess up, who's going to be paying those $6 million?
Well, we would essentially, you're right. We would be stuck holding the bag, but.
So wait, are we going to?
So
For them, this comes first, that we go to them and say, listen, we got to spend that money. This is the rate you're going to be. before we go
Fair.
money, we put the money, and then they're not fessing up, and then we stuck with the $6 million that we have to pay.
I think we need to involve the players in all of this right now. We've had discussion with some of the players. I think the concern I got is, and I think we all have, is if we don't spend the money because we are waiting for somebody to walk in with an agreement and that plant goes down, now what do we do?
Understand, we just approved $4 million to spend for the critical things. I'm just, I'm just worried that we keep spending money in there. I mean, 6, 4, and 1, right? That's $11 million. Right, and we have no agreement for them to pay back.
Can I jump in just a little bit? First of all, to clarify, the $4 million is a subset of the 6. So we're borrowing to cover the $4 million that we approved project-wise. So it's the total is 6.
But that day when we had a conversation, Ed said there is $1 million from somewhere, $1 million from somewhere, and he was able to find $4 million somehow in his kitty bank that he was able to give for this project to cover. $1 million was coming from the hauler, waste hauler, and so on and so forth. So now we are changing the
I
fund.
know where you're going back to, and you're correct. Well, what my statement was that in the absence of being able to get a loan for this, for whatever reason, we could certainly cover some of that from existing reserves. But that means we're depleting the very reserves that I worry about and leaves us stuck with no reserves if something happens to us down the road. I'm choosing the option to borrow because we're trying to structure a loan that says, first of all, not looking for any debt service until 2027. So we're basically, maybe we should go up in some of the slides, basically trying to avoid any debt service at all. Why? So that we can get with all these players, Boston Beer, we can get with Synopta, all the principal industry players that are still here that say, even if you go to something on your own, and some of them are clearly not going to do that, somebody's got to pay to keep this plant running. And that's what we're trying to do with this.
And I think what we have is a situation where we could use reserves to pay the $4 million for that project that was approved. We could do that. We would prefer to borrow so we preserve the reserves, but the borrowing is still justified based on hauler revenue, current Boston Beer revenues, the current revenues that we have coming to the pre-treatment plant in that time period while we're negotiating with the future. They all know that they have to help pay for this project. It's a matter of just getting the structure together so that we recover it.
Okay. So I have a question. I wasn't involved in any of the other pre-treatment plant discussions. So do all of the users have agreements with LCA or they do not? Or is this all through Upper Macungie?
They do not have, we have an agreement with Boston Beer.
Okay.
And then we have an agreement with Upper Macungie. So.
And so what do those agreements say? Or are they silent on capital improvements at the plant?
The agreement with Boston Beer includes a capital component.
Right.
And the agreement with Upper Macungie is not as straightforward. So we charge them for high strength waste and they collect that from the users, but it's not as straightforward as a direct one-to-one for the debt service that we have. That's what we need to change.
So we can't rely on what we have in place now. We're living with what we have had from way back when.
Right.
When
the debt service on the $6 million is small enough that the current structure will accommodate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about trying to reformulate that into what the future will look like. And we just need more time to do that, but we can't wait to do the projects.
And were these county agreements that got transferred when LCA took over the plant? We have many old agreements. I'm just asking, are we in the same situation where we're living with things that have happened from long ago?
Yeah, the Boston Beer agreement is essentially the same agreement that the county had with the prior brewery owners. And the process of, we call them excess removal credits that we get from the township. That's also old agreements from the county that have just carried forward. So we're needing to redo all of those. Yeah. The hauler revenue is one piece we haven't talked a lot about, but there's a lot of potential upside there to grow the revenue base there to help support this, and that gives us a little bit more comfort that we have the debt service for this small loan.
And like I said, we're delaying debt service as long as we can, until we put all of these things in place that we need to do. Just have this fear that we do nothing, and next thing you know, the plant doesn't work when the light goes on. So, next. I'll let Chris talk about this. He's the one that took all of the.
So this is a summary of our summary, honestly. We couldn't fit the 20 different bank financing proposals on here. So we just took the top ones for all the 20-year proposals that were within a consideration range. So that got us down to the yellow line, 4.29% at 7 years. Then below there, I included on that slide the proposal that we got for a 30-year term. Based on discussions and cash flow and timing and everything else, we decided that the 30-year term wouldn't be the right fit. So we went back to the proposal, the 20-year term in S&T Bank, highlighted on that screen, 4.29% for 7 years. Variable rate thereafter with a cap of 6% was the best proposal that we received, given the parameters under which all these discussions are taking place today, showing that the complications of this financing in and of itself, compared with everything else that's going on, you want to have maximum flexibility. That's what this proposal does for you.
Yeah, we couldn't take the 30-year commitment, even though you would like to say, well, that's less debt service every year, because actually, that 30 years would be on the useful life of some of the replacements that we're making.
I will say that of the industries that we've been talking to, 20 years is a comfort zone for them in terms of their commitment to participating in the financing.
Yeah. So this would be the sources and uses. We're going to take on $12.5 million. That will cover the construction costs of 11 million, the 5 and 6. We'll cover the cost of issuance, and we'll be capitalizing interest so that there's nothing till 2027. And then there's also the refinancing, so we're paying off a note of $1.0 million as well.
What is capitalized interest?
Essentially, you're borrowing the interest that's due on the new loan for a certain period of time.
Why do you do that?
Why?
Yeah.
For exactly what we're talking about, to give you more surety on when you have your rates and revenues in place for the PTP. So effectively, you're borrowing more money to pay the interest in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
If you don't need it, you don't have to use it.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a debt service schedule. There's a lot of numbers. I'm just going to start in 2026. We would be in the neighborhood of $950,000. You could see it climb upward in 2027 for the next 7 to 10 years, and last through 2044. So we would be a debt service of $23.6 million total. We did talk about this cut already. Is the reason why I specifically said that $6 million was so that we understood what that $6 million was, and the capitalized interest portion of that, the delay in debt service payments on it. That's the schedule that relates to that for $10 million just on the $6 million. So we, like we usually do, we did That's a condensed cash flow that's through year 2044, which would be the end of the term for this. You can see the debt service coverage ratio, which is a key ingredient for us, also for the banks that are going to loan us that money. We're at 8 now. We're going to go to 3.9, 2.52. The smallest number I see there would be 2027 of 1.91 until you get into, say, the last 10 years, where it's still a good number, about 1.20. 1.5, I think, is the lowest I see there. So we're making the debt service coverage ratio that would be required. Quite frankly, we're going to need to take on more debt as we move along on the curve of 537. So this is not all of it. There will be some other years where there is borrowing to cover the project activity because we just won't have enough operating revenue to do that. So this is kind of a summary, I think. Yes, $12.5 million in borrowing. S&T Bank is the bank of choice. We will, from a lien perspective, just say it's the suburban wastewater system now and not anything else. It is conditional upon Penvest agreeing to a parity lien position because we do have existing debt with them. We're not refinancing.
What is a parity lead position?
It's basically, go ahead. I'll let you.
Penvest and S&T Bank have the same claim at the same time on their revenues. S&T's not higher, Penvest is not higher. They have the same claim, period.
So if we go belly up, they can come in at the same time?
Correct. And you'd essentially divvy up whatever is left evenly between the two.
Thank you.
That's it.
The only thing, one thing I'd add here is the reason we're kind of going through the painstaking process with Penvest, it is a little painstaking, is that the interest rates are so low that we don't want to get rid of them if we can at all achieve that. What we're asking for Penvest is something that they normally don't do, but we thought we should ask, because then we can keep that $5 million of the $20 million that would be total outstanding in the suburban wastewater at a low interest rate.
What is S&T Bank? I've heard of M&T Bank. I've never heard of S&T.
S&T Bank is a upper northern tier bank, which is Mansfield area.
Oh, okay.
They've been trying to expand to the east. I live in Lancaster. They've kind of made it to there.
Okay.
This is another area that they're trying to expand to.
Gotcha.
Okay, are there any other questions? Board members? Others? Okay, we have before us resolution number 10, 2024-1. Mr. Solicitor, would you mind paraphrasing the key points of this resolution?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution 10-2024-1 for the purposes of authorizing the issuance of the sewer revenue note suburban system 2024 series in an amount not to exceed $12,450,000 for purposes of the capital projects outlined and also the refinancing of the authority's sewer revenue 2011 Series A and authorizing certain officers and officials to take action necessary with such financing.
Fine, very, very good. Thank you, Kevin. All right, I need a motion and a second on this.
So moved.
All right, Norma, motion.
Second.
Linda? All right, motion made and seconded. Any other questions? We'll do a voice vote on this, please.
You bet. So this is a vote on resolution 10-2024-1. Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Amir Famili,
Yes.
Ted Lyons,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Yes.
Norma Cusick,
Yes.
Linda Rosenfeld,
Yes.
Don Ziller is not with us. Mark Ramos.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 7 in favor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks for the presentation. All right, moving on then. We have a next one under Finance Administration. It's the LCA main office parking lot expansion. Seeking approval. It is the salmon documents within our board package and digital board packet pages 48 to 51.
All right, we'll turn to Chuck for that one.
All right, thanks, Lisa. So this project is for the construction phase authorization of a parking lot expansion project. Over the last several years, we've experienced severe parking limitations here at our main office. With the regional KISS meetings, construction meetings, union meetings, all sorts of meetings that involve numerous parties. We often experience people parking on grass, parking across the street in the office complex across from Spruce Road. And we recognize that we have a limited parking situation here, a limitation of parking spaces. So we hired a local consultant about a year ago to design and permit a parking lot expansion to the south of this office. When you pull into the main office here, there's a little island to the rear of the dentist's office, and we own that. And we're proposing to put a parking lot there and add 25 spaces there and 3 spaces to extend the parking along this side, along the east side of our main parking lot. So our consulting engineer performed the design. We went through the land development process with Lower Macungie Township, secured all of the permitting, and we did the project last month. We received 8 bidders. It was very competitive bidding. First, let me just tell you what else the parking lot project comprises. There's a lot of drainage improvements. There's subsurface drainage beneath the lot, a gravel system with perforated pipes that, because we have a limited space here, adding to our impervious coverage requires adding to the drainage volume, the retention volume. So there's subsurface drainage beneath the paving, and then a 15-inch HDPE drain line that ties into an inlet over near our operations garage. And that was all permitted through the township. So getting back to the bid phase, we got 8 bidders on this project. Project was advertised for bid in late September, and we had a pre-bid meeting, and then we opened bids October 17th. The lowest bidder is Gaber Industries, doing business as Barker and Barker Paving, at $320,262. We checked on their references. We reviewed their bid. Everything checks out. They've done a lot of paving in the area, although we have not worked with them. They did paving for Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority, taxiway paving and parking lot paving. They for pharmaceutical company, for Bethlehem Area School District, for UGI Gas, and other large firms. So we're satisfied that the firm is well qualified to construct this parking lot. So, and the bidding was very tight, as you can see. Engineer's estimate was about $350,000. So I'm encouraged we're getting a decent price. So what I'm asking for today is authorization of this bid from Barker and Barker Paving, and also on the construction, on the capital project authorization. I'm asking for $20,000 PSA authorization for our engineer for a total CPA amount of $365,262.50, Ted. So that is my request. Any questions on this?
Chuck, this is Brian. The design phase is all done, correct? The design and bid phase is correct, is done?
Yes, yep, that's completed, yes.
All right, just on the document, this is what I was trying to say before the meeting, was there's a couple references that we're still in the design and the phase and bid phase. Under project status, it said board approval is requested for design and bid phase. And then And then back in the professional services, it starts out with design phase services are to be provided. Those were all done, correct?
Yeah, sorry for that oversight. I was.
Trying to give you a heads.
Recycling a prior memo.
Okay.
So, yeah, design and bid phase are all completed.
All right. Any other questions from board members? And we have before us a capital project authorization construction phase for $365,262.50. That includes a construction contract with Graver Industries, also known as doing business as Barker and Barker Paving, and also includes a professional services authorization construction phase for engineering services to Arthur A. Swallow Associates for $20,000. The construction contract was $320,262.50. I need a motion and a second to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Norma? Jeff? The motion made by Jeff and seconded by, motion made by Norma and seconded by Jeff, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, now, are there any questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. The motion is approved. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. All right, on the agenda, nothing underwater. We have one item under wastewater, Allentown Division, Klein's Island Wastewater Treatment Plant. Final settling tanks 1 to 4 upgrades, seeking approval. Green documents in the board package, digital board packet pages 52 to 59.
All right, thanks, Lizzo. Amy Rohrbach is going to be presenting this project at the Klein's Island wastewater treatment plant for upgrading 4 original final settling tanks. These tanks are over 90 years old, and this project was in the 2019 master plan as a recommended near-term project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, as Chuck said, these are the 4 original final settling tanks at the plant. The original tanks are approximately 90 years old. And they were upgraded last in the 60s, the late 60s. So the current mechanisms are past their useful life. The electrical system is 1960s vintage as well, and it is in need of replacement. Back in April, on April 22nd, you authorized final design and bidding phase services. And we went out to bid on September 10th and held a pre-bid meeting on September 19th, and bids were opened October 16th. We received 5 general construction bids and 3 electrical construction bids. It was a well-attended pre-bid meeting with some good competitive bids. The low GC bid was Eastern Environmental Contractors at $2,992,230. And the low electrical construction bid was Orlando Defender for electrical contractors at $509,500. Our engineer was GHD, and their estimate was actually a little higher at $4,581,000. So the total bids between the 2, GC and the EC, was $3,501,730, which came in quite a bit under the engineer's estimate. And some of those reasons could be during design, engineers will reach out to vendors, and some of that pricing they get during bid design can be a little inflated, not always accurate. So, and there's some contingency built in that number as well. We've been noticing, as you saw in Chuck's recent bid that he just presented, and my bid from the last meeting in October, we're getting a lot of bids on jobs. So I think it's also the nature of the market. Contractors are looking for work, so they're giving their best price. So that's all good news for us. So before you right now is the capital project authorization for general construction to Eastern Environmental, electrical construction to Orlando Defender, and construction administration services to GHD. The total authorization requested is $3,798,130. And we have worked with Eastern Environmental. They're currently
working on the water filtration project. And Orlando Diefenhofer seems to be our electrician who wins all our bids because they're right across the street. So they're working at both the Pines Island and at the water filtration plant, and we've had nothing but good experiences with them. So we see no reasons why these two are not qualified contractors to do this work. Assuming we get authorization today, we will work on issuing the notice of award and anticipate contracts to be finalized and notice to proceed issued sometime in December, which would mean construction would wrap up in about June of 2026. It is a longer lead time because there's long lead times on the mechanisms and the electrical equipment, and then we have to do each tank separately. We can't take all 4 out of service at once. So it's a slightly lengthier lead construction schedule, but it'll be beneficial to the plant in operations and maintenance to upgrade this equipment. The work also includes upgrades to the leachate receiving tank, one of the finals. As you might recall in my last presentation back in April, one of the finals is currently being used as a leachate receiving tank. And so this will include upgrades to the pumping, how the pump is in the tank and the discharge line and metering of that leachate. Any questions? It was a lot, sorry.
Brian's on mute.
Brian, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Any other questions? All right, then we have before us a capital project authorization construction phase for $3,798,130. That includes a general construction contract award to Eastern Environmental Contractors for $2,992,230. And it includes electrical construction contract award to Orlando Diefenhofer Electrical Contractors for $509,500, and includes a professional services authorization construction administration to GHD for $171,400. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Norma?
I'll second that,
Yes.
Brian, Mark.
And Mark second. Motion by Norma and second by Mark. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is item number 7, monthly financial review. It is digital board packet pages 60 to 72. And this is the September 2024 report, which was attached and is our white documents in our board package.
So I'll ask the board the fast version or the normal version?
Tell us what we need to know.
What's that?
I said, tell us what we need to know.
Okay, we'll, it was a good month, so we'll go through it quick. So just for the month, we actually had 2 of the 3 funds came in with income on the positive side. One slightly negative. Against the forecast, we were worse on suburban water, worse on wastewater, city division worse. But on the cash flow side, we're positive. On suburban water, suburban wastewater was $1 million negative, and city division was positive. And again, against forecast, we were slightly unfavorable in water. Wastewater was positive, and city division was positive as well, so not bad. I mean, we had some negative variances on the income statement, but cash flow looked fairly decent with respect to the forecast for the month. Year to date, we're positive in two of the three funds. Suburban wastewater was the lone negative in terms of cash flow. Or I'm sorry, income, right, year to date. On a forecast, compared to year-to-date forecast, we're positive across all three funds. On the income side, as you get into the cash flow statement, positive in water, negative in wastewater. And while year-to-date, we're up big time, and that was simply as a result of the way we borrowed for 3 years. Compared to forecast, we're slightly negative in water. Wastewater is good, and city division is 16 million better. So year to date looks fair compared to forecast. Full year, we have done a Q3 forecast. We reflected that in the budget. So all the budget comparisons that we talked about with respect to the Q3 forecast. As you compare that to the budget, we're good with respect to suburban water. We're also good with wastewater. City divisions down, and that is mostly due to actually it is totally due to the additional costs that we borrowed for. So we got more cash. We had a little bit more in expenses to do it. But all not bad. In terms of cash flows, all three funds are gonna come in better than what we budgeted for the year. So just looking at some of the funds individually, income year to date, you see the forecast variance of 223. There's not much variance in operating revenues and expenses. We make up mostly on the interest income side, and also got a little bit of favorableness from the interest expenses as well. In the full year income, we are saying that we're going to be $328,000 better than budget. And pretty much across the board, operating revenues are good, expenses are good, non-operating, that's interest income, and we're just off a little bit in interest expense, so pretty good there. Cash flows year to date, we're minus 720. Most of that was due to CAPEX. You can see the variance there is like minus $1.5 million and that's pretty much a timing thing because a lot of expenditures were forecast for October and hit in September. In terms of cash flows full year, we're going to be up by 1.5 and it's across the board pretty much. Cash from ops, CAPEX, and investing in others. So all good favorable variances full year. Just the metrics were 2.23 in debt service. That's obviously better than the budget target and our internal target. Operating ratio of 1.23 is also good with respect to both targets, budget and internal. And days cash on hand at 427. We expected that will come down to 347. Suburban wastewater year-to-date income. We're up by $1.1 million, and there is favorable variances across all the income categories. Income full year, we're up by 171,000. You got the same picture. We're favorable across all categories on a full year basis as well. So, cash flows year to date. Wastewater, we're up by 1.3. Couple combinations there. Cash from operations was better because income was higher, or net operating profit was higher. Favorableness on the debt service side, CAPEX was higher by 686, and interest income made up pretty much more than that. So that helped us get positive. Full year, we are going to be 931, and most of that sits in CAPEX. Metrics, Debt service coverage ratio of 5.58. That's all good compared to budget, better than target. But for operating ratio, actually, we are better. It's not less than 1, but it's better than what we budgeted. But again, less than 1. Days cash on hand, we're say 203. So we're better than the internal target. And we think actually this will go up a little bit by the end of the year. City division income year to date, up by $4.4 million. The only thing that was a little negative and not a lot is on the operating revenue side. Expenses, interest income and interest expense were all favorable. Income full year, we're at minus 2.7, and you could say that's pretty much sitting in capital right now, 3.3 or higher. Cash flows year to date, 15 million higher. Most of that is related to cash from operations and debt service and financing. And also get a little bit unfavorableness on CapEx, but investing in others at 4.2 million favorable. For the full year, well, we're up because of the way we borrowed, so we're up by $48 million. There is the comparative or the pro forma that I compared. You take the budget, adjusted for the way that we did the borrowing, you would have said the budget was going to produce a cash flow of 47 million, and actually we're a little bit better than that. We're $4 million better because we're going to be $5.5 million in lower CapEx. Metrics of the city, 2.20 debt service. We're better than budget and target. 2.18 in operating ratio is better than budget and target. And cash on hand is almost 308. That will, we believe, will also come up by the end of the year. Your scorecard, I would say pretty good. We've got a total of 11, 11, and 12 across the board. So we're hitting double digits on all 3 funds. Again, there's not much negative to talk about in the scorecard. So just a summary, nothing unexpected year to date compared to forecast. Suburban water cash flow is down a little bit. Full year compared to budget looks good. The city's only being affected by the way we borrowed. And once you strip that out, it actually looks better. So income on invested balances is up. We're still getting higher rates and still have significant interest income coming in. And basically the underlying metrics for all 3 funds looks good. So we'll start another forecast.
Okay, are you completed?
Yep. Questions?
All right. Board questions? Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Ed.
Welcome.
All right, next on the agenda is monthly system operations overview, which we conduct on the second board meeting of the month. It's our digital board packet pages 73 to 75. And the September 2024 report was attached, and it's also white documents within our board package.
All right. As mentioned in front of you, you should have the September 2024 operations report. As always, we will start off with the safety side of things. We did have one non-reportable safety incident in which an employee was zapped by another grounded service line in the city. But there was no vehicle incidents or no actual reportable safety incidents in September. Switching over to the second page, we'll start with water production. We are officially out of the high usage months. So in September, for Allentown, we were at 22.75 MGD, which is a decrease of about 1 million gallons from the previous month. You will notice Sean Spring was down to 6.21 MGD, which is pretty unusual. To explain that a little bit further, we did not use that source for about 4 days. If you look down at the bottom, there was an emergency on the raw water line coming from the Sean Spring, where there was a leak on September 23rd that was discovered. So we had to isolate that line and not use the source for a few days until we were able to have that repair done on an emergency basis. And then once the repair was completed, we were able to return to service and production has been back up to normal. Going down to Central Lehigh for the water production, once again, we're a little bit lower than we were the previous month. The big one though, on the wastewater side, we were at 30.35 MGD, which is about 2 million gallons per day, less than any other month this year. Same with the pre-treatment plant, that is the lowest month. And the big explanation behind that, as we move down further, is the precipitation, where we've only received 1.3 inches in September. Pennsylvania has not issued a drought watch or drought warning at this point. The groundwater levels are still within a reasonable range. Surface water, the Little Lehigh Creek, is starting to drop a little bit lower than normal. But at this point, we're not issuing any type of drought warning or anything like that. Main breaks, we did have 2 in the suburban division. And as I sort of touched on, we had 2 emergency declarations in September. The prior meeting, Chris did discuss one of them and he brought that up for approval. And then the second one, as I mentioned, was below that threshold, but was for the Shaw's raw line. And we had J.O. Bradley make that repair, and the total came in at $39,542.06. So we'll switch over to the final page here. Going down, oh, actually, I missed the big one, but we'll sort of cover on here. Sand Spring, we did complete some of the modifications that we were working on. Just as a little reminder, that's the little plastic media that we've been placing into the SBR tanks. So as of when I wrote this, we only had SBR 1 completely wrapped up. We had all 10 cubic meters of media installed. That was done, and then I think it was last week, we actually installed it into SBR tank number 2 as well. So we're monitoring the performance of both those SBR tanks now, and we may or may not be adding more media in the future. But so far, everything's going pretty well. We're getting a lot of good growth on that media. So we're expecting good data to start coming out of that in the near future. The big test is going to be once we hit December, January, when that temperature of the wastewater really drops. That's when we really start to lose the nitrification process. So if we're able to hold on to that going into January, February, then we can sort of mark this one a success. But with that being said, with all the construction activity that was going on, having to take the tanks out off service, transfer over solids, transfer over water, it was not fun, we'll put it that way. So we did have 6 permit exceedances in September for Sand Spring. They were ammonia related, CVOD related, and also fecal coliform. But once again, it was from shifting everything around, making sure that we could get that media in and not actually and minimize the amount of loss of solids during that process. We also did have 2 permanent exceedances in Linwood. That was mainly due to 1 fecal exceedance in the middle of the month. But other than that, there was no permanent exceedances at the other wastewater plants or bypasses, as well as water. There's no boil water advisories in September. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Any questions from the board? Questions by others? All right, thank you very much. Move on to staff comments.
Additional today, thank you.
Solicitor comments.
No comments, thank you.
All right, public comments on any topics whatsoever.
No, thank you, Brian.
Yep, no comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Board member comments. All right, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned, and we will then reopen another Zoom meeting, which you should have received information on how to obtain.